going to be a quick overview of some of the style options that you have for page elements. So select the element that you want to apply the styling to, and then using the style property, there's a number of different property values that are available within style. So we're going to be looking at the border, the display, the text align, margin, padding, text align, background color, font family, and they get displayed within the page element within the style attribute. So those will actually override any of the classes because it's directly within the style attribute where JavaScript is applying those style properties. Open up your JS file and we're going to create some styling into the page elements. So first off, we want to select the element that we want to output and create additional elements into, and that's going to be the element with a class of output. And then using a for loop, let's create a bunch of page elements, and then we're going to add them into the main, and we'll apply different styling properties to each one of these elements. So create 10 different page elements and increment them by 1. And this is going to be where we're going to create the element. So the element that we're creating using the document, create element, and the elements that we're going to create are all going to be divs. And the elements can have some text content within them. And this is going to be just a string value with the ID for the element, so the index value of the element, so that they can all have different values, and then appending them to main as they do get created. So let's see what that looks like. So that gives us a bunch of page elements, and we can select and we can use these page elements. Let's add to the elements, and using the class list and add, we'll add an element class of box to them. So that way we can make a selection of those elements, and we can apply some different styling properties to those elements. So within the elements as we've constructed them, and once they are visible on the page, create another variable that's going to select those page elements using the document and query selector all, selecting all of the page elements with a class of box. So that will return back all of the newly created elements, and then we can select them using their index value to apply different styling properties to them. So that gives us a node list of 10 page elements. Let's select the first one, so L's with the index value of 0. And in order to apply style properties, you use the style property, and then from the style we can select different styles. So if we want to update the color, and this is just updating the font color, just as we would when we're applying CSS, that allows us to update the element first, the first color for the element. We can also add in borders, so it's also another style property. So style and do the border. And just as we would when we're creating it with a CSS, it's expecting a string value. So we can use the border shorthand where we've got the one pick solid and then the color of the border that we want to do. So that will add in a border. We can also update the style, the display properties. So style and set the display properties. And if we don't want to show it, we can set it to none. So that will remove it from the view. There's also the display inline block, so that's going to stack them. So we can apply an inline block to those, and if we add in an inline block to style number 4 as well, that will stack them right next to each other. And we can also just apply as we're creating the page elements and do different styles to them. So if we want to set them all to display as inline block, we can do that as well and just get rid of on those two styling properties. So that just stacks them right next to each other. So instead of the display, let's go ahead and we'll add in some padding around it. So this one, do 10 pixels of padding around it. So that's going to be the element 3. For the next element, let's select where we've got the inline block and do a margin and set a margin around that. So 10 pixels of margin. And because they're inline blocks, we can also set different widths and heights for that page elements. So selecting element number 5 and set a width of this element, and I'll set this to 200 pixels. You can change these as needed. And then of course you can apply multiple style properties to them. I'm actually going to add to each one of them the style so that we can distinguish where each element is. So adding in the border for each element and make it one pick, solid, and I'll make it really light color. So EEE, and that's where we can see each one of the elements from the page. You can also update the styling for the font. So select another element and select the style, and within the style you can do the text align. So we can right align the text if we wanted to. So that's going to be number 6, and this one isn't very wide. So let's also, as we're creating them, we'll set a width for each one. And set a width of 100 pixels for each one. So that way we can see the text position. So for number 6, we set the text align to right. There's also background color as well that we can set. So it's to number 7, style, and do a background color. So the property names don't include any spaces. They are camel cased. So when we are setting CSS, we would have the opportunity to do the dash. But in this case with JavaScript, the property names are going to be just displayed within a camel case. So set the background color and set it to yellow. So there's number 7 with a new background color of yellow. And anything you can do with regular CSS, you can apply within the style attributes of the page elements. So when we select the element and style, this is going to give you a drop-down list of all of the options. There we've got the border. We can set the background color, the background repeat, also the background shorthand. So all of these border options, also the box shadow, box sizing, you can clear for the different display properties. Also adding in the flex box options, setting up the different font families. So that will update the font families, so now they're all Arial. And the editor will provide all of the different options there within the drop-down. You can also set the line heights and length of it, letter spacing, margins, the overflow, the different padding positions. There's the scale, there's the rotating scroll options for the page elements, text align. There's also the transform, transition options, and z-index for each one of the page elements. And of course you can apply multiple styling, and when you go look at the page elements within the source code of the elements, this is applied as within the style attribute. So directly inline to each element is where we see all of the style properties being applied to them. So go ahead and try it out, create some page elements, select them, and apply different styling properties to them, and you can be ready to move on to the next lesson.